Palestinians are celebrating the death of a former Israeli Prime Minister. Sharon died on Saturday. He'd been in a coma for 8 years following a massive stroke. We're now joined by Avrom Krengel, who's the chairman of the South African Zionist Federation, for more. The 45-year-old was widely criticized for his role in the military invasion of Lebanon and other human rights abuses. So welcome to the show. Now, Ariel Sharon is largely seen as a giant of modern Israel. Now, there have been very many mixed reactions to his passing. What is your take on the situation?
The State of Israel and Jewish communities throughout the world mourn his passing. Tragically, he was in a coma for 8 years. But prior to that, for literally his entire life, from a teenager, he fought for Israel, defended Israel, led Israel in many capacities. And to hone in on one or two events in a life that spanned 60 years of service to the State of Israel, I think is unfair. And, especially when he was Prime Minister, he protected Israel, he defeated the Second Intifada, but he also took important steps to bring peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, specifically the disengagement from Gaza, where he removed 25 settlements, 12,500 settlers from Gaza, and allowed a Palestinian entity and state to emerge in that area. Unfortunately, Hamas took it over and conflict resumed. But he's a man that Israel is mourning greatly.
Yeah, and now there are some who are saying that he's been in a coma for 8 years, but there's some that are saying he should have stood trial for all the crimes that he committed, for all the war crimes. Do you think he paid his dues?
Look, the crime that is referred to is Sabra and Shatila. It was a massacre of a few hundred Palestinian refugees in a refugee camp in Lebanon. It was committed actually by Christian phalangists, not by the Israeli army, or was not ordered by him. He had no knowledge of it. But in an inquiry that was conducted under the auspices of the State of Israel, by the Judiciary of Israel, it was found that because Israeli soldiers were in the area, they should have intervened, and he was held responsible for it, and he was removed at the time as the defense minister of the State of Israel. If one looks today in present terms, when the United States controlled Iraq or Afghanistan or even now in Syria, it's extremely difficult to stop local groups who have vendettas against each other from unfortunately killing one another. But Israel, being the democracy that it is, it took steps, and he was held accountable, and he never actually resumed that position ever again. Yeah. But as I said in the beginning, I think that is one incident in an entire lifetime. In the Yom Kippur War, which was a life and death struggle for Israel in 1973, he made an audacious attack into Egyptian territory, crossing over the canal and surrounding the Egyptian forces, and brought that war to an end. And the ending of that war brought a lot of peace and stability to the area. It led to the peace agreement with Egypt 3-4 years later, a quiet border with Syria for many, many years. So it's his legacy in totality that I think people have to recognize and assess.
All right, one last question, sir. How does the current Israeli leadership compare? Yes.
Sharon was unique in that he was probably the last leader who fought in almost every single one of Israel's wars. As a teenager in the War of Independence, when he was wounded, the War of 1956, 67, 73. We do not have, Israel does not have those leaders anymore. Literally the founders of the State of Israel. The last is the president of Israel today, Shimon Peres. He's 90 years old. And it's a new leadership. But what I do think the new leadership have been able to do is build on the legacy of Ariel Sharon. One of his major contributions as a Minister of Housing, he facilitated the influx of 1 million Russian Jews for the fall of the Iron Curtain. And then when he was Prime Minister in the early 2000s, he introduced major economic reforms. And those two events actually have led to the flourishing of the Israeli economy and society in the last decade. And that's the legacy that the present leadership, that he left them, and they have moved on from there. And today, Prime Minister Netanyahu is involved in talks with the Palestinians to try once and for all, after 65 years, to reach a settlement with the Palestinians which will allow two states to emerge. One, Israel, a democratic Jewish state, and Palestine, a democratic state for the Palestinians, something that should have occurred 65 years ago.
Yeah. Sir, thank you so much.
Thank you
so much for your time. That was the chairman of the South African Zionist Federation, Avrom Krengel.
You deserve to know more.
eNCA.com.